Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Dr. Kiran's English Academy. Today we are going to discuss sonnet. So, what is a sonnet? Types of sonnet, and what are the types of the questions they asked in the exam? That is from previous papers. That is PGT, TGT, DSC. Now, let us discuss what is a sonnet. Sonnet, a lyric poem consisting of single stanza of 14 iambic pentameter lines linked by an intricate rhyme scheme. So it is a sonnet is a consisting of single stanza, only single stanza. This is the single stanza, and in this single stanza 14 lines. So how many lines? And 14 lines. Single stanza but 14 lines. Iambic pentameter. So iambic pentameter. Iambic means, what is iambic? Unstressed syllable followed by stressed syllable is called iambic. Penta means 5 foot. So this is a one single stanza and it has 14 lines and iambic pentameter lines linked by an intricate rhyme scheme. Intricate means and complicated or detailed rhyme scheme. Sonnet was derived from Italian word sonetto, which means a small song or a musical sound. గతంలో కూడా మనకి కొన్ని క్వశ్చన్లు వచ్చినవి. Sonnet was derived from dash word. It was derived from the Italian word. So this is a very important Italian word. Sonnet was derived from the Italian word. What is that word? Sonetto. Sonnetto, sonetto, which means a small song. Small song or musical sound. So there are maybe three questions, three important area. One is derived from the Italian word, and that is a word name is sonetto, and that is the meaning of the small song or musical sound. So it is a now here in this, so important iambic pentameter, one single stanza, 14 lines, iambic pentameter, and Italian word derived from the Italian word. That word is a sonetto, which means small song or musical sound. Now let us discuss the classification. There are two major pattern of rhyme scheme in sonnet written in the English language. One is the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, and second one is the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. Now let us discuss what is the Italian sonnet. Italian or Petrarchan sonnet. The sonnet is named after 14th century Italian poet Petrarch, because the Petrarch, so he very important writer Petrarch, he introduced this is a sonnet. That's why his name also Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, because he belongs to Italy, an Italian poet. That's why it is also called Italian or Petrarchan sonnet. It's a fall into two main parts. One is the octava and other one is a sestet. So octava means rhyming scheme 8 lines and sestet means 6 lines. What is the rhyming scheme of Italian sonnet? చాలా ఎగ్జామ్స్లలో, కాంపిటేటివ్ ఎగ్జామ్స్లలో వాట్ ఈస్ ద రైమింగ్ స్కీమ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఆక్టేవా అని అడిగారు. దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ ఏబిబి ఏఏబిబిఏ. దిస్ is the rhyming scheme of octava, 8 lines, and sestet 6 lines, CDC and CDC. So and ABB AABBA, that is the octava, and CDC and CDC, so sestet. So what is the octava and sestava means? 14 lines, and in this 14, 8 or octave, sestet is the 6 lines. The rhyme pattern of Petrarchan sonnet as an old favored statement of problem. So here in this octava problem, the 14 lines, 8 lines, this is the 8 lines, they talk about only a statement of problem, situation or incident in the octava, with resolution in the sestet. So sestet lo resolution, solution, conclusion untadi, and 8 lines lo nemo problem or situation, incident. సో ఇది కూడా మనకి ఎగ్జామ్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ వ్యూలో చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఆక్టివా అండ్ మేజర్లీ స్టేట్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్రాబ్లమ్, అండ్ సస్టేట్ అండ్ సొల్యూషన్, రెజల్యూషన్ ఇన్ ద sestet. So ఇది రెండు కూడా మనకు చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. రైమింగ్ స్కీమ్ ఈజ్ ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఆక్టేవా రైమింగ్ స్కీమ్, సెస్టెట్ రైమింగ్ స్కీమ్ అండ్ ఆక్టేవా statement of the problem, and sestet is the resolution. So each and every, this is a very important area. Now let us discuss Petrarchan sonnets first imitated in England. So this is included, like imitated in England, introduced in England. In both stanza form, their standard subject hopes, pains of adoring male lover. So this is the one more important thing is the problem is the hopes on the pains of adoring male lover by Sir Thomas Watt. So Thomas Watt and Petrarch in the early. So that is Petrarchan he introduced in the 14th century. Then 14th century also very important in literature because Geoffrey Chaucer also belongs to 14th century. And later Sir Thomas Watt he introduced, this is a sonnet in England, and male adoring male lover by Sir Thomas Watt in the early 16th century. And 16th century almost you know that Shakespeare period starts. Petrarch form was later used for the great variety of subject by Milton. Even John Milton and famous writer John Milton also used Petrarchan sonnet. William Wordsworth, who belongs to the Romantic period, Christina Rossetti and D.G. Rossetti. So these writers also they used the Petrarchan sonnet in their poems. Now let us discuss what is the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. It was introduced by the Earl of Surrey and William Shakespeare. So first introducing by Earl of Surrey, as this is the English sonnet or Shakespearean sonnet antam దీన్ని. And because this sonnet falls into 3 quatrains and concluding couplet, 3 quatrain concluding couplet is a AB AB CD CD EF EF GG. So this is the very easy to remember rhyming scheme of the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet, AB AB CD CD EF EF GG. So it present instead repetition with a variation of statement in each 3 quatrains. So 3 quatrains లలో variation of statement in which in either case in a final couplet in English sonnet usually imposes an epigrammatic turn at the end. Epigrammatic means concise and clever, concise or clever. Epigrammatic turn at the end, this is all called. And now let us discuss, this is the again the Spenserian sonnet. This is the third one, and major 2 important sonnet, those are, one is the Petrarchan sonnet or Italian sonnet, and the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. But now these are sub topics like the Spenserian sonnet. The Spenserian sonnet in which Spenser linked each quatrain to the next by continuing rhyming scheme. What is a Spenserian stanza? Because it was introduced by the Edmund Spenser during 16th century, and Edmund Spenser famous poem, I think all of you know, the Fairy Queen. So famous epic. So that is చాలా నెట్ ఎగ్జామ్లో సెట్ ఎగ్జామ్లలో ఫ్రీక్వెంట్గా అడిగే ఫెయిరీ క్వీన్. హూ రోడ్ ద ఫెయిరీ క్వీన్ అంటే ఎడ్మండ్ స్పెన్సర్ డ్యూరింగ్ ద 16th century. And Spenser linked each quatrain next by the continuing rhyming. So what is the rhyming scheme? AB and BC and BC and CD and CD EE. These are the rhyming scheme of a Spenserian sonnet. AB AB, BC BC, CD CD EE. It was introduced by the Edmund Spenser during the 16th century. So later, after the John Donne, you know that John Donne, religious poet, very famous poet, and shifted from the hitherto, and hitherto means until now, primary subject sexual. So earlier sonnet primary goal and primary theme of sonnet was only, that is on sexual love, to variety of religious themes in his holy sonnets. So later this is the sexual love towards sonnet, and later is shifting shifted from that sexual subject to the religious matter, religious themes in the his holy sonnet. He introduced this is the sonnet in a holy purpose. Written early 17th century, and John Donne, who belongs to the 17th century, and later Milton in later part of the century, expanded the ranges of sonnet to the other matters of serious concern. So earlier only sexual love and adoring male lover, that is a sonnet, but later they shifted to the religious sonnet and holy sonnet, and Milton also used the sonnet for the holy purpose. So like this, how the sonnet was shifted from other part to the religious matter, that is also important. Now, and in this period, except the lapse in the English neoclassical period, and neoclassical period, I think you know Samuel Johnson, some of the important writers in the neoclassical period. In the neoclassical period, this is a sonnet was not used by anybody, and it is a distinguished practitioner in the 19th century. Later in the 19th century, again this sonnet was used. So and only neoclassical period matram sonnet was not used. Sonnet ni neoclassical period లో ఉపయోగించలే, కానీ మళ్ళీ 19th సెంచరీకి వచ్చిన తర్వాత వర్డ్స్వర్త్, ఫేమస్ రైటర్ వర్డ్స్వర్త్, కీట్స్, జాన్ కీట్స్, ఎలిజబెత్ బ్యారెట్ బ్రౌనింగ్, and Christina Rossetti, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti. So he is a famous work. I think all of you know that Blessed Damozel, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti famous poem is a Blessed Damozel. And these are the writers, they use the sonnet in their poems. In the 20th century, W.B. Yeats, and Irish poet, Irish playwright W.B. Yeats also used this as a sonnet, and Robert Frost, and even in our syllabus also Road Not Taken, very famous poem written by Robert Frost. He also used this is a sonnet, and W.H. Auden, Dylan Thomas. These are the famous writers also, they used the sonnet in their poems. And later when it comes to the cuttle sonnet, what is the meaning of the cuttle sonnet? Cuttle sonnet, curtailed and contracted sonnet. It refers to specifically sonnet of under 11 lines. So what actually sonnet has 14 lines, but here and G.M. Hopkins, who used the sonnet, is a cuttle sonnet and 11 lines. So only 11 lines ఉన్నాయి, 14 lines ఉన్న sonnet ని. So he made it as a 11 line. This is called cuttle sonnet. ఇది కూడా మనకు ఎగ్జామ్లలో అడిగే అవకాశాలు ఉన్నాయి. And rhyming scheme is AB, CA, BC, and DC, BDC, and R, AB, CA, BC, DB, CDE, like CDC, with the last line tail off line. So this is all last line is a off line. Now there the term was used by the Gerard Manley Hopkins, J.M. Hopkins. So well known figure is a J.M. Hopkins. To describe the form he used in such poems as a paid beauty and peace, cuttle is now an absolute. Absolute means old used word meaning shortened. So the cuttle sonnet, and paid beauty also one of the famous poem of J.M. Hopkins. So ఇది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ పోయం. మనకి కొన్ని సెట్ ఎగ్జామ్లలో, నెట్ ఎగ్జామ్లలో కూడా మనకి ఈ పోయం గురించి అడిగారు. వాట్ ఈస్ దట్ పెయిడ్ బ్యూటీ? ఇట్ వాజ్ రిటన్ బై J.M. Hopkins in his poem the Cuttle Sonnet. Next sonnet is the Meredithian sonnet. What is the Meredithian sonnet and Cuttle? The J.M. Hopkins used 11 and a half sonnet, but Meredithian sonnet also 16 lines. See that 16 lines, 16 line sonnet. So only but you must remember that sonnet is a 14 lines, because the standard English sonnet or that Petrarchan sonnet only 14 lines. These are very subtopics, not very very important, but sonnet means you remember only 14 lines, that is called sonnet. And Meredithian sonnet and 16 lines variation on the traditional 14 line sonnet pioneered by the Victorian poet George Meredith. So George Meredith is a famous poem, same famous work is a Modern Love. ఇది మీరు రాసుకోవాలి, చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ వర్క్. జార్జ్ మెరడీత్ రాసింది, జార్జ్ మెరడీత్ మోడర్న్ లవ్. 16 lines are split into 4 quatrains and 4 line stanza that follow AB AB. So this is the rhyming scheme is the AB AB and scheme. with the exception of last stanza which follows and A B. So last stanza only A B B A rhyme scheme, the Meredithian sonnet and 16 lines. And later sonnet sequence or sonnet cycle. What is a sonnet sequence and sonnet cycle? A number of Elizabethan authors arrange their poems in a sonnet sequence. So sonnet sequence లలో రాసిన and Fairy Queen also written in the sonnet sequence and sonnet cycle అంటాం. So series of sonnet linked together by exploring varied subject aspects of relationship between lovers and else by indicating development relationship that continues the kind of implicit plot, so indirect plot. This is the and majority of the author Elizabethan authors arrange their poems in the sonnet sequence or sonnet cycle and together exploring varied sub aspect of relation between the lovers else by indicating development. Now let us see that Shakespeare ordered and he wrote his sonnets in 154 sonnet. It's in a sonnet sequence. So ఇది మీరు రాసుకోవాలి important point. And Shakespeare he wrote 154 sonnets in a sequence, as did even Philip Sidney Astrophel Stella is a very important poem. మనకి చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫిలిప్ సిడ్నీ Astrophel Stella and Spenser and Amoretti. So this is also poems written in the sonnet sequence. Wordsworth River Dudson and D.G. Rossetti's The House of Life. This is also a poem written in a sonnet sequence. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So Robert Browning wife is Elizabeth Barrett Browning and sonnets from the Portuguese. So ఇది కూడా మనకు చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫర్ ద ఆల్ కాంపిటేటివ్ ఎగ్జామ్స్లలో మనకి గతంలో కూడా టీజీటీలో పీజీటీలో కూడా అడిగారు అండ్ డిఎస్సిలో అండ్ నెట్లో సెట్లో చాలా ఎగ్జామ్స్లలో వచ్చింది. ఎలిజబెత్ బ్యారెట్ బ్రౌనింగ్ సానెట్ ఫ్రమ్ ద పోర్చుగీస్ ఇస్ a very very important work. American poet William Ellery Leonard's Two Lives, Dylan Thomas Alterwise by Owl Light is a sequence of 10 sonnets which are abstruse meditation on the poet's own life. So sonnet sequence la kuda manaku, so these are the sonnet sequence now, and we completed what is a sonnet. Now let us discuss the questions which they asked in the previous exams. JL 2023 lo who among the following was dominant influence on the English sonnet as a form? So this is the who among the following was dominant influence on the English sonnet as a form? Galen, Erasmus, Petrarch, Lucretius. So I think all of you know that this answer is Petrarch and belongs to Petrarch, because Petrarch only he introduced in the 14th century Petrarchan sonnet. It is also called Italian sonnet. Next question, TGT 2023 lo kuda very recent also they asked which language the term sonnet derived from. I already told you in the beginning of the sonnet. And which language the term sonnet derived from? Which language? English, Greek, Italian and French language. So and answer is the Italian. So that is a sonnet derived from the Italian word sonetto. Next, school assistant 2018 lo kuda the sonnet was introduced in the English and first half of the 16th century and first half of the 18th century, first half of the 17th century, first half of the 16th century, and sonnet was introduced in England by first half of the 16th century. So this is already also we discussed. So like this they asked in the exam, and sonnet I explained in detail regarding sonnet, and thank you one and all.